So recently, you've started doing your own special effects and like practical special effects, not just computer stuff. How did that start for you?
Yeah, actually, we don't really do computer stuff. Everything we do is on set. I'm sorry, what did you ask me?
Where did you get the idea that, oh, well, we can actually do this?
I just got the inspiration from the person who used to do the special effects, and I just wanted to teach myself. So for Killer, the only thing that was really needed was a bullet wound. So this
Hmm,
was easy to the head. This was easy to start. So
sure.
YouTube. YouTube, you can find anything.
Great
I
resource.
I watched so many YouTube videos to get inspiration to teach myself how to do things. So I was able to pull that off. There was also a scene where my husband was going to be shot in the back of the head. He was playing, somebody that broke in. So I had to rig something, with this tubing to go behind his ear, and I'm out of sight, and I got this like, the baby syringes,
Right.
the aspirators. I, with all my force when he got shot, and it rigged, and the blood went flying out. So my mind just works with everything that we need to do. But House Call was huge. We had that tongue. Um, that you had mentioned, that I went to a store and bought a goat's tongue.
Ooh.
Yeah, and we had that on a little um, thing that was holding it. So when you switch off with the camera, first you see the real tongue, then when you come back, you see that, and that's how he's able to cut it. You got that effect.
Right.
But yeah, the worst was the scene where his heart was being taken out of him. That was a big undertaking for me because I had to make the entire chest cavity and make
Wow.
it all look when he pulled that heart out like it was coming out of his chest. And it all worked. I just seem to have a knack for this, and I really enjoy doing it, which is really odd because all my life I've been terrified to watch horror.
Oh,
It
really?
only, yeah, yeah. I used to watch some of the classics, like Nightmare on Elm
Yeah.
Street and the original Halloween and stuff like that. That I was able to get through. But things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I only watched that too recently. And when I watched that, I was like, what was I so afraid of? I think it was because now I know how everything is done. Nothing really scares me anymore.
Right. Yeah. Once that veil has been lifted, it's like, okay, this isn't
Yep.
real.
Yeah. So
They're
my
not
Joe,
actually getting chopped up by a chainsaw.
exactly. And my husband Joseph has been a big horror fan all his life. So he's been having a lot of fun these last few years, thinking of all the movies he's watched over the decades and then sharing them with me. And I've been having a lot of fun catching up on things I was afraid to watch all my life.
For a period too, I just got away from watching horror movies. When I was a teenager, my wife and I like ate it up. She was
Mm.
my girlfriend at the time, and we would just watch, the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre when that came out. That was just like it's such a grimy feel to it. It
Hmm.
was just so cool. And then we watched a couple others, and then maybe it just kind of like fell off around like Saw 5 or something.
I've
So
never been big on the continuations.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel after a while it's enough.
they're just like money makers at that point.
Yeah,
Like, oh, it's Halloween. There's another blank. It's
yeah.
blank number 5. Um, yeah, but I do feel like a lot of the original ideas are they're just so much better. Have you seen It Follows?
The second one,
Do they have a second one?
wasn't there an original? I saw the whatever the first one was. I thought there was a second one that came out. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, the one with the clown.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they just made a new one, and that was really interesting how
We
they
don't
did
we
that.
haven't gotten around to seeing that yet.
Yeah.
No.
Well, there's actually another movie called It Follows. It's
Hmm.
not related to the clown,
Oh, really?
but it's very reminiscent of the old John Carpenter movies,
Hmm.
but it's got like a more recent kind of feel to it,
Oh.
and it's very psychological in that sense. And I just loved it. And once I saw that movie, I was like, okay, horror movies have something to them, like that
I
psychological
think
element.
maybe I thought we maybe thought that was part of the clown series, and so we didn't even bother. Now I'm going to have to seek that out.
Yeah, but I love the psychological element to horror. Like
Right.
even some of like the gross out stuff, your eyes can be glued to the screen, but some of the psychological stuff you just like you get chills, and you think about it later at night when you're trying to go to sleep. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that works for me. How do you try to mesh those two things together when you're talking about just the idea of, for the one film I saw, um, someone who takes people who ring his doorbell and he invites them in, like that was a common everyday occurrence for most of my life up until stranger danger hit a whole nother level. Maybe it was
Right.
due to horror movies.
Hmm.
So you've got that kind of built-in situation that can be very nervous to go into someone's house and to not know what you're expecting. And then also you do have kind of like the more gruesome effects. How do you find a balance between those two?
Joey had wrote House Call, and his mind works very differently than mine. He came up with that. I was just like blown away with that script, and that was really a lot of fun to do. I think he wanted to have exactly that feel of the old time, knocking, people going door to door, coming in your house, because that is so obsolete now. So he wanted him to have that inviting, to come in, the feeling safe to go in, but then what unfolds afterwards, he should have known better.
Those are just such cautional tales, right?
Yeah.
um, so I really think that when you add those two elements together, both like the psychological and like the gruesome thing, it can take it to a whole nother level. It's
Yeah.
like adding music,
Hmm.
and you've won for best music. Um,
That was
what?
all Daniel Brown.
Yeah,
All Daniel Brown. He just, yeah. We were hands off with that, with all the editing, the music choices, and we are always so surprised to see what he comes up with, and just always blown away. He makes perfect choices.
and it's nice to have someone on your team who you can rely on for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you primarily do the writing and producing and some of the special effects. So when it comes to the producing, um, I know you said you've looked on Craigslist, you've looked on like different things
Yeah,
like that.
that was only like for our first film, because we
Yeah.
didn't know about film.org. Film.org is our go-to place now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've never
It's
used it.
really,
What's the
it's a
setup?
great site. It's the Greater Philadelphia Film Office, and
Okay.
it's all free. You just go on there for casting, for actors, for crew. You post it. You post whether it's voluntary, deferred, paid, and you put your listing on there, and just you got the next week or so, you're just going to be bombarded with your emails at how many responses come in.
Wow.
And then as they come in, we just go through. We usually take some sides. We send them to the actors. We just, no direction, just give them a little background, tell them to run with it, send us a video audition. That's one of our favorite parts. We love seeing everybody's take on the same set of sides when the video auditions come in. That's a blast.
Oh, that's
It really
fantastic.
is.
And I'm sure there's a similar resource for different areas, so our viewers will have to look into that.
Yeah, what's odd to me though is I get a lot of response. I have to be very specific, saying Lancaster, Pennsylvania to
Hmm.
response, because I've gotten responses from like across the United States. I've got responses
Okay.
from California. Matter of fact, for Because Reasons, we had cast as Tiffany. That was the main character, and we found the perfect actress. And then we found out she was from Tennessee. And that wasn't in our budget to fly her here, but she
Yeah.
wanted the part so bad, she drove here.
Oh, wow.
We put her up in a hotel. She spent over 24 hours driving, slept the night, and was ready to go the next day. When we wrapped at 9 o'clock that next day, she got in the car and drove back to Tennessee. And she did the performance of a lifetime that we could have never experienced for that actress. Matter of fact, that Joey wrote the adaptation of Isaac Thorne. He's a horror author that we become friends with, and Joey's adapted a few of his short horror stories, and Because Reasons happens to be one of them. And he was just blown away by her take on his character, so that was a lot of fun also.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so when you're working with, you've written a script, you're bringing people in. How do you find the right people to trust with your script or as a collaborator?
That's always, you mean as like the actors?
Actors, director, like how do you gel your vision with someone else?
Yeah, well, it, it's odd because you always have to be a little nervous about just talking about acting, who you're going to pick if it's somebody you haven't worked for before. Can you trust this person to show up on game day, seeing we
Mm.
only have one day? That is always a biggest concern. And amazingly, we have never had a problem.
Wow.
Everybody we've ever picked always shows up. We've been very blessed. We really have. And like I said, when I mentioned like in collaboration with like Isaac Thorne, we met him through Twitter, and now we've become very friendly over the years. And that he trusted his work for Joey to adapt a screenplay from his work. That's always very cool too. It's amazing, the people you never met in face. I mean, over in Twitter land, we have met so many amazing people that even though we've never met them, we consider them friends. Yeah.
It's
So social media can be really a great thing. It can be horrible, but it could also be a great thing.
depends on how you use it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a whole support group on Twitter. It's called the Horror Family. It's a separate group on
Okay.
Twitter, and there's maybe like 30 of us in this group, and we just support each other's work like on a daily basis,
Oh,
and we
that's
all help each
fantastic.
other out. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right.